This morning there was an open letter titled Dear Manan Bhai that appeared in a newspaper and was addressed to a young scholar from the valley, Manan Bashirwani, who looks like he's become a militant. His friends were from Aligarh Muslim University and they reached out to the 27-year-old in their university to ask just what made him leave his books and reach out for the gun. It was an anguished cry against violence, against what the implication of such a move would be, especially because Wani seemed to signal a new trend. Instead of the militant being someone who had trained across the border, he was actually a well-off boy from Takipora in Kupwara. He was trained in applied geology and not just the ways of Hizbul Mujahideen, who has now claimed him. His training in geology was so good that he was chosen to present at an international conference in Bhopal last year. And he also got the Best Paper Award. It was on flood risk assessment, a relevant topic after the devastating floods in Kashmir a couple of years ago. And we have this picture of him presenting this paper in Bhopal. So how does someone go from this picture that you can see on your screen to this other picture which has made headlines this week? Now, this picture which all the police authorities and everyone else have reacted to. There are some reports that Manan faced some harassment by forces on the night of November, which made him take this drastic decision. That he, like many other young people, were agitated generally about the situation in the valley. But he isn't the only one. He is not the exception here. There's also the story of Fardeen Ahmed, another teenager and the son of a police officer who joined the Jaish. He was also from Pulwama, and before being killed, his starring role was uploading the provocative video before the attack on the CRPF camp in Pulwama. There's another example, Zakir Musa, who's also known as Zakir Rashid. He's the head of the Al-Qaeda affiliate, also very young, 23-year-old, engineering college dropout. Again, there's some of these trends, educated. And another trend, son of a government officer, an engineer with the J&K government like Manan Wani. He was also at a good, well-known college, the Ramdev Jindal College of Chandigarh. You want another example? There's the case of Azharuddin Khan, 27-year-old masters from Kashmir University. He quit as a teacher at a government school in Handwara to join the Hizbul, and he's a resident of Kupwara and played an active role during the Kashmir unrest. There's the case of Ishaq Newton, who's a resident of Laribal in Pulwama, and he was killed in an encounter in Tral, and he considered to be very, very good student, scored 98.4% in class 10, 86.4% in class 12. He wanted to be a doctor. So these are just some of these faces that we can show you that have come forward. Now, what are the figures according to government department? According to the J&K police, the figure is 117 young people that joined terror groups just last year. Now, that's a rise from the 88 people who joined the year before that. Again, rising from 68 people in 2015 and 53 in 2014. So it has been gradually rising. Over the next half hour on Reality Check, we are going to try and find out what is the reason behind this apparent rise, this case of Manan Wani. That's what we're going to try and figure out with the help of some experts. I also spoke to Union Minister Jitendra Singh, who is from Jammu and Kashmir, and asked him whether the government is worried about this trend. Here's what he said.
In your state, there is that a concern for the government, the fact that more local people are getting involved? Before it was infiltrators, but now AMU scholar and other people, locals getting involved in militancy?
These are stray incidents, but they don't make the rule.
Okay.
By and large, the youth of Kashmir has actually become a part of the development journey of India.
Yeah.
He wants to come out of these shackles. And that's the reason now, whenever a hartal call or a band call is made by separatists, they hardly meet with any response. A stray incident happening like this could be, having its genesis on a number of other factors. which could be economic factors, which could be coercion, which could be...
But it's restraints, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say that the majority of youth in Kashmir Valley today is identifying himself with the opportunity and aspiration which is available in the present dispensation in India.
Now, if you speak to officials in the Home Affairs Ministry, if you speak to other intelligence experts, they will tell you that they have actually been optimistic in the last month or so, because there have been cases of people coming back, of being in militancy, but opting to come back. Here's one young person who came back from militancy talking about what prompted him to join and become a militant in the first place. It gives us some indication of the motivations, because everyone's trying to figure out what made Manan Wani join.
आप बताएंगे कि क्या मोटिवेशन थी आपको जब आपने कहा कि मिलिटेंसी ज्वाइन करनी?
जी, यही मोटिवेशन थी कि यही मैंने जो बोला सर, ये एजिटेशन 2016 जो वही मैंने स्पीच सुनी, वहाँ से जो खिताब वताब करते थे वहाँ से सुनी, तो मोटिवेशन वहाँ से हुई। फिर स्पीचेस भी सुनी, उतना नहीं पढ़ा था कुरान, तो कम भी पढ़ा था, हदीस वदीस सुने तो खिताबों में सुनते थे, और ये फ़ोन में होती थी स्पीचेस होते थे, तो वीडियो क्लिप्स तो वो भी सुनते थे, तो वहाँ देखते थे, तो ये इंस्पिरेशन हुई कि अल्लाह की राह में निकले।
So we're going to try and figure out the emerging trends that appear from this case. So let me just introduce our guest today. We have in studio Shujat Bukhari, a senior journalist. We also have the spokesperson of the PDP joining us from Jammu, Rafi Ahmed Mir. We have Ajay Sani, strategic expert from the Institute for Conflict Management. And we also have Ijaz Ayub, who writes for Greater Kashmir and also used to be a consultant for a radio station to get us all kinds of perspective. If I can just start with you, Ajay Sani. We saw the minister over there give a very vehemently deny that this was some kind of a trend, that there should be cause for concern. He said this was an exceptional case and didn't really form a trend as such. But when we look at the figures, it shows these rising instances. Are you concerned about this?
Well, I think any escalation in terrorism is a matter of concern. But there's a difference between something being a matter of concern and something establishing a trend. First of all, please understand that when you look at Jammu and Kashmir, we've had a situation where you had something like 4,507 fatalities in a single year in 2001. You had a 17-year high-intensity conflict with more than 1,000 fatalities a year. We are down to about 350 fatalities this year, up from 117 in 2012. So there is a local surge, which is definitely, or a transient surge at this moment, which is a point of concern. Another aspect of the trend that you must look at is that if you look at 2016 and 17, nearly 50% of all fatalities are in just 5 tehsils, not even districts, 5 tehsils of Jammu and Kashmir. So similarly, if you take the 2016-17 stone pelting incidents, again 5 tehsils account for about 49% of all incidents. So we are looking at pockets now, widely dispersed pockets, and very large areas which are either unaffected by or marginally affected by any patterns of violence. So if you want to look at trends, we cannot establish trends by taking individual cases that a youngster has joined here or a youngster has joined there. You have to look at overall numbers and dispersals. Certainly there has been an escalation, but there has also been a tremendous geographical contraction.
And that geographical thing, that's interesting you mentioned that. I was just going to ask, when one travels to Kashmir, then it was previously thought of that a lot of that militancy is happening in the south of Kashmir. Is that the 5 tehsils you talk about, are they the same areas, or has there been a shift in that as well?
No, there isn't a shift. There are concentrations. You've always had, for instance, Tral, which has been a problem area. You've had Chopian, which has been a problem area. So you have a dispersal. You also have these concentrations in the south. So there is a dispersal, and it sort of patches along the border mostly.
So Rafi Ahmed Mir, Ajay Sani says there is a surge, and we can see from the figures as well there is a surge. Is the government in denial about this? Because the centre certainly seems to suggest that. Is the state government acknowledging that there are these figures for whatever reason, and what do you think about that?
I cannot say anything about the figures which I have heard now. It is only government or the security agencies who have the figures. But the fact remains that there has been a uprise in the militancy, and since 1990 there has been ups and downs. One day we thought that whole state is clear of militancy, whole valley is clear of militancy, but it is not. And actually it is very unfortunate the trend that we are seeing, this number of youth joining the militancy. And I think anybody involved in it, anybody associated with it, be it security forces, be it political parties, be it government, we have not been able to establish successfully as to what leads the young people to join militancy at the moment. I believe that it is the whole crop of youngsters who are joining militancy with the weapon in their hand. They are all born after 1990. They have never had a respite in life. They have never seen normalcy in Jammu and Kashmir. They have never seen peaceful Jammu and Kashmir. They have only seen bloodshed and all that. And it is the smallest matter sometimes, the smallest fillip, which makes them to decide something, that they take gun in their hands, and not the other measures which could have been decisive in settling the issue which they face or which the state is facing.
Where do you think the problem lies?
See, Sunetra, I think the problem lies in the fact that there is lack of political engagement in Kashmir, which has been missing for last more than 8-9 years now. And there's also this problem of being in denial, and you have seen a very responsible minister talking about this particular incident of AMU.
The PDP doesn't seem to be in denial.
AMU PhD scholar saying that this is a stray incident. I don't think that this is a stray incident, because once you have a PhD scholar who joins the militant ranks, he somehow becomes, I would say, quote unquote, inspiration for maybe others also, because the entire this business of militancy gets glorified. And I think that in last 4 or 5 years, we have seen that, as you have also pointed out, that there's increase as far as the local militants are concerned.
Yeah.
I think
from the Jammu and Kashmir
police from the exactly. I think these are the correct figures. And if we look at the composition of militancy as far as foreigners and locals are concerned,
yes.
I think it's a reverse kind of a thing.
Actually, I think we have a graphic explaining that. So while you talk, I just want them to bring that up.
What we were seeing 5 years before, if you had, suppose, for example, I'm not actually making a decisive percentage for that matter. If you had 80% foreigners and 20% militants, to 20% locals, today you have 80% locals and 20 to 30%.
It's that dramatic.
Yeah, it's very dramatic, and in the sense
80% locals.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, you look at the figures, and agencies will give you the figures. I think the trend started soon after Afzal Guru was hanged in February 2013, because I think that was a very decisive moment as far as Kashmir is concerned, when Centre picked him up from the 28th number and hanged him, to send a message, to send a clear message to Kashmir that we can do anything vis-a-vis Kashmir.
So it wasn't Burhan Wani's
killing. Burhan Wani is a later phenomenon. I think it started soon after Afzal Guru's hanging. I mean, irrespective of the fact that if we discuss that whether his sentence was right or wrong, leave that aside, but sheerly picking him from the 28th number of the death row and taking him to gallows for some political purpose, I think that actually broke the confidence and trust of the people in any political process. And the political process in itself has been missing on the ground since 2007, 2008. There's no political engagement. I think.
Ajay Sani, would you accept that? Because, you know, the PDP spokesperson being very honest in saying that we don't have any idea what is driving these young people. I'm going to ask Ijaz that in just a bit, as he's the youngest of the panelists over here. But I want to ask you, do you think that is the motivation? The Afzal Guru was the turning point? Because if you look at the rising numbers, as you pointed out, 2013 was when it started rising.
Exactly.
And it's gone on rising. In fact, since last year, the largest jump to 117 was last year from the previous year's 88.
Soon after Burhan's killing, exactly.
Right. Right. So these figures. So Ajay Sahni, would you agree with that being the trigger?
You know, first of all, I would. No, first of all, I would like to disagree with some of the numbers that are being bandied about. 80% are all locals, and I don't know where these numbers are coming from.
Okay, that is not from the police, but the other numbers, Ajay Sahni, of 117 locals, these are Jammu and Kashmir
218.
It's not a definite percentage, but there's a reversal.
Yes,
I mean,
yes,
there's a reversal.
Also, are you trying to tell me that there are only 140 terrorists operational in Jammu and Kashmir? Out of the 218 fatalities that we document.
No, there are 280 militants as far as the government is concerned.
So, what are the local terrorists doing? So, you've got to, the other gentleman earlier said numbers are only available to the government. Not at all. There is a whole open source. People are coming and banding about numbers that they literally are pulling out of their own imaginations. Either don't talk about numbers. Let's talk about sentiment and feeling and things like that. If you're talking about numbers, don't say, oh, more than 80%, unless you actually can give me hard numbers that there are so many people killed, so many are local, so many are outsiders. So I don't get that. Number two, as far as motivation is concerned,
go ahead.
Yeah, I have no problem with perception. Yeah. Say it is your perception. Then that's all right. Talk about your sentiments. Talk about your feelings. Don't tell me this is a trend. Don't tell me this is data.
No.
Don't use expressions such as 80%. That's a very specific number. That's a very specific number.
No. What I was trying to say.
Now, as far as this whole idea is concerned that Burhan Wani, let me,
No, go ahead, Mr. Sahni.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
No. What I was saying is that if you look at the figures of past 4 or 5 years.
As far as.
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
4 or 5 years. I mean, the complexion of militancy has completely changed. If you look at the figures of the government as well, there is an increasing number of local militants, which is actually...
Okay, that point is settled. Let's just move on to the motivation. What were you saying about the motivation, Ajay Sahni?
As far as motivation is concerned, you must understand there is an environment. That environment is being created. One of the points that is being made over there is very legitimate, that there has been no political outreach. Rather, I would like to suggest that establishment parties are engaging in an extremely mischievous, polarizing politics on both sides. I mean, the Hindutva side on the one hand, valley politicians who stoke a sort of a soft Islamist line, and there is a tremendous amount of polarization. An environment is being created. All these things happen because they are facilitators. They happen because they are providers. They happen because of peer pressure. They happen again because there is a societal sanction for such violence. And now you must go back to the point that I tried to make in the beginning, that societal sanction is being increasingly constricted. It is not as widespread. I mean, people try to keep on going back, from the first gentleman who spoke, I don't remember. It has been up and down from the 19s. What do you mean by up and down? We were talking about 2,000, 3,000 people being killed a year. We are talking about a very unhappy figure of about 350 being killed last year. That is not something to be satisfied by. But don't compare the Jammu and Kashmir of the 1990s with the Jammu and Kashmir of the post-2006 period.
Okay, if I can just go across to...
Things are improving. There are localized, transient ups and downs.
Yeah. Oh, I just wanted to go across to Ijaz Ayub because everyone...
Don't expect normalcy in an area of persistent conflict of this intensity.
Right. Ijaz Ayub, one of the things that everyone's trying to figure out, and I think one of the things that was most poignant about this latest AMU scholar story is that his friends appeal, his family, everyone trying to figure out what is it that makes someone who's doing so well academically, who is living outside for the last 6 years on campus in Uttar Pradesh. What suddenly drives them to towards the gun? Could you what do you think about it? Yeah.
As long as we keep on making indicators like year-on-year death toll as to the kind of normalcy indicator, I don't think things are going to go any better. Let me start a very short timeline. I cannot go till from the 1947 since the conflict has actually started. I'll start from 2008. 2008, one major peaceful protest started in Valley. Then 2010, those peaceful protests turned into violent stone pelting incidents. And in 2016, the situation has turned into armed rebellion. Why has this graph grown up from peaceful protests to stone pelting to armed rebellion in a short span? That question we need to ask, because there has been a choking of political space. The political space, if you talk about separatist camp, if you talk about mainstream, there are two political camps that we have currently in Valley. Mainstream, there is no social sanctity. Sorry to say that. And in separatism, that doesn't go well with the state. So slowly and gradually, the choking political space, there is no voice that can come out. As a result, there is a sense of alienation that is getting increased. Let me do a small comparison. If you have people in Delhi and Mumbai coming out, students coming out for protests for simple governance issues, let's say they have governance issues, but for people of J&K, youth of J&K, there are political aspirations which they need to address. Like Shujat Saab rightly said, there needs to be a political engagement which has not happened. In 2010, after the violent incidents took place, everything was disturbed. Indian government engaged interlocutors. Three interlocutors, people took them seriously. They went to different walks of life. Youth went to them, they talked to them. People from businesses, people from different political aspirations, they talked to them. Everybody was taking interlocutors very seriously because people thought something is coming up. But the report came up, nothing happened. And eventually, now you have an interlocutor appointed, but nobody is taking him seriously. Why? Because historically, people have seen that it's simply a time-buying tactic. No serious political engagement is actually happening. So that's why the graph is going only up. And if the policymakers, like we have one of the policymakers in our studio right now, if they don't get serious about addressing those political aspirations in a very peaceful and genuine manner, I don't think there is going to be any calm in the recent, anytime soon.
So I just want to end this on a, to look for this very less time to talk about such a complex thing. But Shahid Bukhari, he also mentioned, Ijaz just mentioned the latest, because what Ajay Sahni also said, what you would also agree is that there isn't engagement, there isn't a reach out. So this latest interlocutor, is that the way out, or what is the road towards bettering things or stopping that spiraling trend?
See, I think first and foremost thing is that, as Ajay also pointed out, that the concern which we should have is that there is a societal sanction to what is happening on the ground.
Yeah.
If you look at today's pictures of the militant funeral, there were more than 30,000 people.
Right.
And saying that this is only happening in patches and all that, we have seen 2016 when you had to actually lock down 7 million people for 54 days. I don't think it's in patches. It is an overwhelming kind of a response, which is
so
actually,
how do you stop the societal sanction?
Which is directly actually demonstrative of the fact that there are political aspirations which have to be addressed. I think the road is that Delhi will have to come out of its denial mode. I mean, when interlocutor was appointed, as you are referring to, when he was appointed, the next day the party functionaries started saying that he has nothing to do with Kashmir issue. Right. It's an issue of grievances and all that. I don't think. I think it is actually onus is on Delhi that it will have to accept it as a political problem and approach it politically. But I'm happy that Delhi has realized after 3 years that this is...
And the societal sanction?
Societal sanction only will, I think it will actually, it will not go away in that sense, but it will, there will be an effect that if Delhi will be serious in approaching Kashmir as a political problem. I think that they have realized that for 3 years they did try the hard power in Kashmir, but I don't think it worked, and that's how they appointed interlocutor. So we don't know about his mandate, we don't know his reach out and all that, but I think if there is a serious effort, then we may be able to counter that. I don't think by killing people, by killing militants and saying that we have killed so many militants and we have not killed these people, I think that is not going to help us.
Okay, we're totally out of time, but I think what it highlights are the alarming figures, gives us all a lot of food for thought and need for finding those answers to some of the crucial questions that all of you have raised. That's it on Reality Check. We'll again be back tomorrow night. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.